We are diving into the absolutely shocking case of one of Pakistan's biggest YouTubers and what his ordeal tells us about the country's entire justice system. So these are the words of Pakistani YouTuber Saadur Rahman, who you probably know as Ducky Bhai. He said this about the moment he was leaving for the airport with his wife. They were on their way to a government-sponsored event in Malaysia. He had absolutely no idea that his life was about to be turned upside down.
What came next was a 100-day nightmare. And it really pulled back the curtain on a system that, frankly, a lot of Pakistanis are afraid of. This timeline just lays it all out, from a normal day at the airport to weeks of intense interrogation, and finally into one of the country's notoriously overcrowded jails.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It all started on August 16, 2025. Ducky Bhai and his wife are at the airport in Lahore, literally minutes away from getting on a flight to Malaysia. They've got their boarding passes, they've gone through security, but right at that final immigration check, everything just stopped. Instead of getting on that plane, Ducky was pulled aside, put in handcuffs, and taken to an office of the NCCIA, that's Pakistan's National Cybercrime Investigation Agency. And right away, the interrogation began, all centered on these allegations that he'd been promoting certain online apps.
Now, according to Ducky Bhai, what started as a simple investigation quickly spiraled into something way darker. We're talking about physical abuse and a systematic plot to basically extort him and his family for millions.
He describes being taken into a room with this high-ranking officer, Additional Director Sarfaraz Chaudhry, who he says just started slapping him over and over. He claims he was forced into painful positions and, get this, in this bizarrely cruel moment, he was put on a video call for the officer's 7-year-old son, who was then told to insult him. And the craziest part? Ducky says all of this happened after he had already given them total access to all his accounts and devices.
At one point, he remembers being so desperate that he wasn't even asking for them to stop hitting him, just to hit him a little bit less. He felt like he was cooperating completely, giving them everything they wanted, but the abuse just kept coming. And then, he says the money demand started. He alleges this whole multi-stage extortion plot. First, they wanted 60 lakh rupees to make sure his wife's name stayed out of the case. Then another 30 lakh just to get him moved to a regular jail. And the final demand was for a whopping 1.5 crore rupees to make 4 other potential cases just go away. And to really turn up the heat, they froze every single bank account linked to his family. This brings us to a huge part of the story, a crypto transfer of over $326,000. Now, Ducky Bhai claims he was forced under duress to send those funds to the officer's personal wallet. But the official record? It tells a totally different story, that the exact same amount was recovered as evidence and handed over to the court. Ducky alleges that this official record was only created after he started to speak out about the extortion from inside the agency. So you have to ask, right? Is this just an isolated case, a few bad apples, or does Ducky's story point to a much bigger systemic problem? Well, if you look at the data, it suggests his experience is anything but unique. According to international reports and legal studies, his experience is, tragically, pretty common. Reports on human rights in Pakistan often identify torture and ill treatment by law enforcement as a serious issue, frequently used to force confessions out of people. The numbers are just staggering. A really detailed study by Justice Project Pakistan and Yale Law School looked at almost 1,900 police cases in the city of Faisalabad, and what they found was shocking. 80% of them had evidence of torture and violence. Let that sink in for a second. In 8 out of every 10 cases they looked at, abuse was part of the process. And the crisis just continues inside the prison walls. Once you're sent to jail, you're entering a system that is dangerously overcrowded. A 2024 report found that on average, Pakistani prisons are at 152% capacity, and some are way worse. Karachi Central Prison, for instance, is reportedly holding over 350% more people than it was ever designed for. So what's driving all that overcrowding? Well, a huge part of it is this. Nearly 3/4 of Pakistan's entire prison population are under trial prisoners. These aren't convicted criminals. These are people who, just like Ducky Bhai was for 100 days, are just waiting for their trial. They're legally innocent until proven guilty, but they're still stuck behind bars.
So all of this, it leads to a really unsettling question about justice in Pakistan. Is it actually applied equally to everyone? Or is there one system for the average person and a completely different one for the powerful and well-connected?
According to the analyst Syed Muzammil,
Just having money isn't enough to protect you in Pakistan. Actually, if you don't have powerful connections, having money can make you a target. He puts it pretty bluntly. If you can't make that one phone call to someone with real influence, you're basically powerless.
And this contrast is just wow. Look at these two cases from around the same time. On the one hand, you have a driver in a Land Cruiser who runs over and kills two young girls. That case was reportedly settled and closed within 2 days. On the other hand, you have a YouTuber accused of promoting some apps, and he spends 23 days in physical remand and over 3 months in jail before he can even get bail.
So, after everything, how did Ducky Bhai's ordeal finally come to an end? Well, it wasn't through a normal bail hearing. It wasn't a win in court. The resolution came from a place completely outside the public justice system.
He talks about being approached in custody by someone he calls Big Brother. This person, Ducky says, was from a military intelligence agency. And apparently, his agency found out that their name was being used by the NCCIA officers to intimidate and extort Ducky, and they were not happy about it, so they decided to step in.
And that intervention changed everything. The intelligence agency investigated the family's claims, and that led to the arrest of the very same officials who arrested Ducky in the first place. Additional director Sarfaraz Chaudhry and the others were suspended, and now they're facing their own trial. It was only after all of that happened that Ducky Bhai was finally granted bail.
You know, it's a chilling reminder of something the political philosopher Hannah Arendt warned about. She said, terror becomes total when it becomes independent of all opposition. Ducky's story really feels like a modern example of what happens when a few officials believe that absolutely no one can stand in their way.
But here's the thing. In the end, Ducky Bhai being rescued by a powerful connection wasn't a victory for the justice system. In a lot of ways, it was proof of its failure. And that leaves us with one final, really important question for the thousands of other people who face this system, but who don't have a famous name or a powerful big brother they can call. Who helps them?